Sure.
Live streaming is on.
Yes, and there we go. It does appear that it's working. Just to find the link so we can share it, because it's good to let people watch. Oh,
Yes,
dang it,
sir.
I don't need that. Where's the video? It's a full month. It should be. Hang on, people. We're figuring out the traditional technology is not my friend. Because why is that not coming up? There should be the live video on my up on the channel that I can then get the link and share the link. But for some reason,
It doesn't want to share.
yeah,
It's being selfish.
exactly. It's technology. Oh, that might be the problem. It's set to private. Like, of course, so nobody could see it. Because I had it. Yeah, the one video I did, I had to make it private. Actually, I should explain that to everybody, because people might be wondering why it's not there anymore. Okay, hello everybody. We're just getting set up. We'll be starting momentarily. Need to change the thumbnail as well. But I can do that after. Okay. I just sent you the link via Messenger, and I'll be posting it now as well. I really need to change that thumbnail. How do I do that? Hi, Lisa for Truth. I'll change the thumbnail after. I guess I'm not sure how to do it in the middle of live stream. And yeah, I should also probably address where I've been lately. Share the page. One more time. There we go. Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. If anybody's been wondering where the last video went, there's some editing that has to be done there, but it will be back up in the near future. I apologize, I haven't been around lately. I've had various issues with medical things. I caught COVID, for example. And in general, it's just been a little difficult to do streams lately. But I am back. We do have an episode tonight with my good friend, author Patrick Thomas. I believe we'll be talking about some new books that he has out or coming out. But it's always good to have Pat on. But for the moment, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to tonight's episode of Paranormal Encyclopedia. As always, I'm your host, Kevin Mears, demonologist, paranormal investigator, and the Paranormal Encyclopedia. No, Lisa, it is not about the haunted chair in the pub. I'll let Patrick introduce himself, and perhaps you want to talk a little bit about Murphy's Law, since that's probably one of your better known series.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Patrick Thomas. I am the author of over 50 books. Among them, the Murphy's Law fantasy, urban fantasy humor series, which is set in a bar in Manhattan that was that's owned by a leprechaun. He used his pot of gold to buy the place. So now rainbows lead people in trouble to the bar. Hercules is the bouncer. Dionysus, god of wine, is one of the bartenders, and various people of myth, legend, and everyday New Yorkers come in and stuff happens. 9 books, summarized really quickly. And then in Star Tenders, it flash forwards ahead 30 years or so, and they go out into space, not in starships, but barships. In the same universe, we have books by characters who get their own spin-offs. Terabel, who's half ogre, half pixie, fights big bads in New York. There's Negral, the Hell's detective, who is a forgotten Sumerian god who's chief of police in Hell. Agent Carver, who was once a demon-possessed serial killer. They've exorcised the demon, and now he fights mystic-based threats against the United States as a federal agent. We have Vince Argus, the soul for hire. He sold his soul to the devil and only kills people he deems worthy of dying. I read the Mystic Investigator series, which incorporates some of the characters mentioned, as well as a witch who fights against evil fairy tales. I read the Dear Cthulhu Advice Empire, which includes columns, advice books, and actually is on Destiny's The Voice of Science Fiction once a month on a radio station on Long Island. And recently, I've had a few new books come out in the last few months, which in no particular order or to the order that they're piled up in. I wrote Cryptid Fight Club for System Paradoxia, which is from Eastbeck Books in association with Cryptid Crate. Cryptid Crate comes out with a crate every month involving cryptids. Sometimes includes T-shirts, action figures, PVC figures, books. It's really good. Check them out. I believe it's cryptidcrate.com, eastbeckbooks.com. And in this one, we have a former MMA fighter who becomes a private eye, and in the course of an unrelated case, comes across a fight ring pitting cryptids against each other in Las Vegas. And he finds out 2 of them have human level intelligence, and he is trying to get them out safely without getting killed himself. So you can check that out. The next book is the first book in the Agents of the Abyss series, which there are 6 books slated to come out. This is the first. Think Universal Monsters meets James Bond. The first one is Frankenstein, Monsters of the Abyss, which I wrote with John French. And in this book, we tell the true origin of Frankenstein's monster. We give him a name and solve that whole, he's the doctor, he's not the monster. The monster gets that. And by the end of it, we realize who we think is the monster may not be the person who is the monster. But it's a retelling, and it is a not only action and paranormal, it has a bit of a gothic romance in it. Next, we have the first book in a brand new series. The second book will be out not too far down the road, called Bikini Jones versus the Brain Nappers from Outer Space. It's what happens when a woman is cursed by a witch to be forever trapped in a bikini. And she saves the world, as often happens in these situations. Basically, she lived next door to a witch as a teenager. She was sunbathing in the privacy of her own backyard, and the witch's husband was peeping at her through a knothole in the fence. The witch got upset, and instead of yelling at her husband, curses Mary Sue Jones to forever wear a bikini. And like I said, she goes on to save the world on a regular basis. And I write books as Patrick T. Phibbs for kids, and I have a new middle reader. And the cover for this and Bikini Jones are both from Daniel R. Horn, and it's called Joy Reaper Checks Out. It's about the Grim Reaper taking his daughter with him on Take Your Kid to Work Day, and he'll never be the same. So that's a quick summary of the more recent books. In the next year, I'll have a YA coming out called Emotional Support Nightmare, which is pretty much what it sounds like. We find out we get to meet the teenage queen of darkness, and we find out that even she needs a friend. And we have the next picture book in the Ugaboo series called On Top of a Yeti, which has artwork by Robert Hoover. and that will be out by the end of the year. And with any luck, before Twilight, the next Murphy's Law novel will also be out by the end of the year to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the Murphy's Law series.
Oh, very exciting.
Yeah. What makes you feel old, because in my mind I'm about 25. My body may not agree with that, but my mind I'm about 25. So, so that's a brief update on who I am, and PatrickThomas.net, DearCthulhu.com, Murphys-lore.com, and PatrickTFibs.com. If anyone wants to check those out, or go to your favorite bookstore.
I also wanted to mention somebody we both happen to know, I think, showed up in chat. John French is at least listening in.
Hi, John.
It's like, yeah, you might know him.
We've met on occasion.
Once or twice.
We've written over half dozen books together, so I think we know each other.
I'd hope so. Particularly, I've run into both of you at the same, doing a lecture together at the same convention. So it'd be very strange case of amnesia.
Well, if we could somehow use that to sell, copies of a book, we'd fake it. So,
John says hello as well.
So did you want to start with, since John's there, and I know you had read Frankenstein Monsters of the Abyss, which, merchandising.
Yep.
What did you think of the book?
I really liked it. It wasn't quite what I expected, but in a good way. I mean, I figured it'd be. I've read some of the short stories you've done for the Agents of the Abyss, I want to say. Because I seem to recall one with Frankenstein and during World War II.
Yes, and a Nazi death camp. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, a very bright, cheerful series.
Oh yes, but I expected something along those lines. I didn't quite expect the retelling that you did, but I really liked it.
It came out really well, and with Agents of the Abyss, I've opened it up, and it's going to be alternating novels with anthologies, and a lot of the authors involved have really put their own spin on the characters. John, of course. One of the upcoming novels is called Detectives of the Abyss, where we get to see not only Sherlock Holmes's interactions with Count Dracula, but his goddaughter, Jane Watson, the daughter of John Watson, and I should say Dr. Watson, because she is not only the protege of Sherlock Holmes, but a medical doctor in her own right. In that book, she visits Transylvania, gets to meet, and we name Frankenstein's monster Adam Frankenstein. She gets to meet Adam, and as John likes to call it, the Franken cat, because Victor did have to experiment before he went to humans. So there is a Franken cat who has the elixir of life. But in the next book, we go from World War I all the way to the modern day. And like I said, we have a lot of very good authors involved who have put their own spin on the characters. So we've got humor, we've got dark, we've got, in the first book, we have Amelia Earhart on an island of dinosaurs. We have Jane Watson, of course. We have the story you mentioned is getting reprinted in that with Adam Frankenstein in the Nazi death camp, where they're trying to actually create what we would consider Frankenstein monsters from what raw materials they have at such evil places. So we have things with the Phantom of the Opera, who is now an actual phantom who must possess other people in order to stay alive. So we do have a good many stories. We have a story with the Invisible Madam, which takes place in Hong Kong. What interesting aspect, which is ignored a lot, is in the original novel, Griffin was an albino. And in our thoughts, the serum only works on somebody who is an albino. So that way, not everyone can just become invisible. So basically, if someone who's not an albino takes the serum, they may turn invisible or partially invisible or for a while, but they're going to die very quickly and very painfully. While somebody who is an albino would become fully invisible. But this particular character starves off the madness by using full body makeup. So with a nice little twist to it. So it is a very good book. We have 3 anthologies, 3 novels. We have Werewolves of the Abyss is one of the other novels, which takes place the troubles in Ireland in the 80s, because
oh my,
with the beauty of a series like this, we can go through different time periods. And Christy Nichols wrote it, but she's going to be using a pen name which she just came up with, and sadly, I am blanking on it. But she is an excellent author. She's going to be writing several different series under several different pen names. Definitely check those out. And we have people who are going to be writing their specialties. We have a story in the first book from Robert Waters involving the Night Witches, Count Dracula, Baba Yaga. So we have a whole bunch of different diverse things coming together during the Cold War. David Summers brings us to Afghanistan in the 1980s, again with the Night Witches. So we do have a lot of different stories. In the second anthology, we have a gentleman who is a Vietnam vet who has a story with a werewolf in Vietnam fighting a native monster, if you will. But in Agents of the Abyss, monsters are not necessarily evil. They're just different. So they can be monsters. But but I think having opened it up to so many different people, it is made it into something so much better and stronger than if I had just done it by myself. And also, we have managed to get 6 books together in a rather short period of time, relatively, because of COVID. It was supposed to be out earlier than this, but COVID has delayed the release a little bit. So, but I recommend it highly. We will have a release date shortly on Staring into the Abyss, which is book 2, which is the anthology. Then we're going to have Detectives of the Abyss. Then we're going to have The Abyss Stares Back. Then we're going to have Werewolves of the Abyss, and then the as of yet unnamed 3rd anthology. And there are a couple more novels that hopefully will be in the works down the road. So hopefully the series will do well, and we'll keep going past those books.
John also mentioned one of the most flattering things I've had happen, that my ancestor Kelvin Mears is in Detectives of the Abyss.
Yes, you have a character who is named in honor of you. So your ancestor, as you say. So,
which was deeply flattering, I have to say.
Well, we're glad you liked it. We don't know many exorcists, so, it seemed appropriate.
Not technically an exorcist, but still.
So an ex-exorcist?
Yeah. Well, demonologist. I'm the one who gets the evidence to get the exorcist to come and get involved.
Gotcha. The gentleman who you used to work with was the exorcist. Got it.
Yes.
Okay.
And I would have loved to introduce you guys to him, but sadly he's no longer with us.
Well, let's see. No, we don't want to go there. And I think I don't know if it's just on my end or yours, but you have just disappeared picture-wise, although I can still hear you. So
yeah, I'm not sure what happened. What's odd is if I go to my page for the conversation, I see my video. If I look at it on YouTube, my face is gone and there's just a giant P in the middle of the screen.
That's what I'm seeing. But okay.
But people can hear me, and that's good enough.
Noah, this is the Lord. I want you to build a boat. Oh. So,
okay, humanity's hosed. I don't know how to build a boat.
Oh well. Well, I think it would be rather hard. Oh, you're back to figure out, how to get 2 of every animal on board too. It's just
Yeah, a little bit. And how
I
do you
don't
get
think.
them not to kill each other in over a year?
Yeah. And also like going to the zoos. I just need two, one of each gender. And they'd be like, no, they probably wouldn't do that. So there's probably all sorts of rules and permits you would need. So
Yeah. Well, there is the guy who tried to build a fake ark out in Kentucky, and he wanted to include live animals inside of it. They turned him down because of ventilation issues.
well, that makes sense. Well, yeah, if you break everything down without any divine intervention, that would be a
Yeah,
very difficult project.
just
Uh,
a bit.
although as a kid, I came up with a theory because I like to read different mythologies, and there are a lot of different flood myths.
Hmm.
And in some of the flood myths, people and animals are saved in different ways, not always a boat. So in my mind, I came up with the world is too big a place for just one guy and one boat to do it. So God had all these various different people, which got handed down through their mythologies, gather their animals, over there. So, it was a team approach, just not everyone realized that because someone's 500 miles away, they don't exist.
See, I've proposed this idea before, except in my version of it, they all loaded up parts of the animals on their boats, but then to decide who gets to be the one person who survives, they have an all-out pirate battle. And because, of course, Noah had the foresight to bring the dragons and to bring the dinosaurs so that he could use as trebuchets, he clearly won the battle, the pirate battle.
Okay.
I think it might make a good story, at least.
It might, and then we could find out what happened to the poor unicorns.
Ah, yes.
So, let's see. I was going to say we could go on to Cryptid Fight Club, which, like I said, is part of the
Yes.
System Paradoxia, which I think is in double digits by this point. I can actually share some amazing artwork.
I was going to say, we were actually lucky enough that both John and another mutual friend of ours, oh, dang it, now I'm blanking on her name. The one who put everything together.
Danielle.
But, yeah, Danielle and John came on to help kick off the whole Systema Paradoxica series way back when.
And we were supposed to do that, but I had some family member medical issues, so I had to postpone. So 6 months later is better than no months. Not happening later. So
yeah, and we both had our own issues, which is why it's taken so long.
Yes, but no, Danielle's done a great job putting the series together. Cryptid Crate has done a great job being the inspiration for getting it started. Like I said, the crates are amazing. Like I said, t-shirts, stickers, challenge coins, PVC figures. So there's a lot of different things, and they do themed crates and they do unthemed crates, so you can get a mixture. And they even now have one for kids. So
nice.
So if you have kids who are into cryptids, you can check out Cryptid Crate. I believe they're calling it Cryptid Crate Junior. So, and I believe that is a monthly crate as well. So,
John says there's 11 books in the Cryptid series.
See, I knew they're in double digits. John is an editor of the series, so John has more knowledge of that than I do. Although the artist who has done all the cryptid pictures is Jason Whitley, and he has done a nice job. The Bat Squash, for people who don't know, is the main cryptid for me, and it is a cryptid set in the Mount St. Helens area, who apparently can survive in volcanoes, and mine is a little shorter than typical. They can be up to 12 feet tall, with a wingspan of up to 50 feet. So my guy has to fit in buildings, so he's a tiny bit smaller. But think a blue Sasquatch with wings, bat-like wings. And the face and the ears are a little bit described as a little bit wolf-like. So, but it's a giant blue Sasquatch with bat wings. And we were trying in this series, we were asked to try and highlight some lesser known cryptids because most people know about Bigfoot and Loch Ness Monster and the Mothman. So not many people knew about the bat squash. And I also
that's a new one on me, and I know cryptid, even some of the obscure cryptids.
And I also used the dingbat, which is one of the fearsome critters from the time of Paul Bunyan. So like cryptid critters that have been around for a couple hundred years. So there's that, which looks like instead of a jackalope, it would be kind of a, antlers on an owl. But these things are fast, like fast enough to pluck bullets out of the air in the legends. And
oh, wow.
And they can eat gasoline or drink gasoline. I guess they'd be drinking it. Although I did see a post while I was writing the book that mentioned a gallon of gasoline has like 35,000 calories. So there might be a reason they would be drinking the gasoline, because somebody who can move that fast is going to burn a lot of calories. So they're going to need to eat a lot. So that would be why they would do it. But like I said, it's not bad to have, an owl that can pluck bullets out of the air for you. And they're both thrown into this fight club, which is the head of which, I won't do any spoilers, is a very unusual individual, which has a lot to do with the end of the book. In this book, the main character is a short gentleman who did some time as a MMA fighter and actually did win the lightweight championship and did win a sizable purse. But as part of his backstory, the guy who lost to him was not happy, came after him with a few friends, and the fight outside the ring got very, very violent. And without giving away again too much, it kind of made him decide not to fight anymore. So he became a investigator for Child and Adult Protective Services. And at one point, as private eyes are wont to do, no matter where they work, whether it's the military, the police department, or somewhere else, at some point have a problem with the rules they're told to follow because it's not helping the people they're supposed to be protecting, and leaves and becomes a private investigator. And I had found out years ago by somebody who worked for Child Protective Services that in a place like New York, where you need 2,000 hours of investigative experience to become a private investigator, working as an investigator for that actually does count towards the hours, while being a typical police officer who's not investigating but doing more typical police officer as opposed to detective duties would not, which I found interesting because, in
that is
books,
interesting.
If you're a cop, you can automatically become a private eye when you leave. It's like a given. It's like, here's your retirement. Oh, you didn't get your pension. Well, here's your private eye license. It's a nice on the way out. So this way,
here's your gold watch. Here's your PI license.
Right. This way, you can fight with the captain, and you can have your one old partner who will feed you information on the side. Just because you saved his life that one time, so he feels obligated for the next 47 books to feed you information.
But do they include the Stetson and the trench coat, or do you have to buy those on your own?
I think you have to buy those on their own. And actually, this gentleman wears neither of those. But he is a little bit, despite his diminutive size, he is someone you wouldn't want to mess with. Although he's also not Superman or Batman would be a better example. If he gets into a fight against someone who's not trained, he's going to clean their clock. But if he's fighting someone who's 6'4" and 250 pounds and is an MMA fighter too, it's not going to be an easy.
He's going to have a bad day.
He's going to have a bad day. But also, one of the things I did like about him is that when I read or I watch TV shows or movies, the stupidity of the writing sometimes gets to me. Like, I love most of the Die Hard movies. I love some of the Die Hard movies, but Die Hard 2, it's got so many holes in it. You can drive, that plane at the end through it. In the beginning of the movie, Bruce Willis gets a text from his wife to call on a plane. And at the time, he's gone from being a New York cop to being an LA cop from the first movie, because that happens. And maybe because he saved the Nakasami building, they said, okay, we'll hire you as a detective. But that's not how it works. You don't go from a New York detective to an LA detective. They don't have an exchange program. And then he has an LA beeper. And back in those days, I had a beeper for my job. They don't work across the country. They work in a limited area. So he couldn't have gotten the text. And then you couldn't call into a plane in those days. So he gets the text. He calls his wife. They have a conversation. All things that could not have happened. But then we spend the rest of the movie with him trying to take the tower so he can land the planes. All he has to do, he has the beeper on his belt. He never loses the beeper. All he has to do is get to a payphone, call his wife, say, honey, tell the pilot the airport's been taken over. My badge number is, because he's a detective. He has something above everybody else. Don't listen to the tower in DC, fly to Baltimore. Tell the other planes, love you, bye. The day is saved. No punching, no whatever. And in the, I think it was the fourth one, he has a cell phone. He needs a cell phone. And I think enough people realize the mistake. The cell phone he gets shot and the cell phone gets damaged and he can't use it. See, all they had to do is him trying to do that and destroy the beeper. But just things like that. So in this one, I have him planning ahead for, well, what if this happens to me? What can I do? So he has actually prepped his car. He has prepped his person. He has prepped his phone. He has all these things. If I get chased, if I get caught, if I get this, if I get that, because with what he's doing, that's going to happen at some point. So he actually puts plans in motion that will help him when that happens. And like I said, it doesn't make sense to me that people who work and do that for a living would not have escape plans. It just makes no sense.
Logically, I'd have to agree with you. It's like, why wouldn't they think this through? Oh, I had a question from one of my listeners. So Lisa for Truth, who's a regular on the channel, asks Patrick,
Hi, Lisa.
Do you read Nightside series?
Yes, Simon Green. I do. I enjoy the Nightside books. I have been saving the last one. I have not read it because it is the last book in the series. I actually love Terry Pratchett. I've not read the last book in the series because, it's the last book. So I tend to save those for that. But I think it's a very good series. It's well written. It's got a nice variety. I enjoy it. To a lesser extent, I like the, I'm going to mispronounce it, the Dowd series, his James Bond spinoff. His supernatural James Bond. I don't think that one's quite as good as the Nightside. And I've only read a few books. I did stop a few books in, so not quite as good. But Simon Green is a great author, and the Nightside is a great series. I recommend it.
The name's familiar. I can't say I've read it myself. There is so many great books out there that I want to read in so little time.
There is. But this, I want to say there's at least 8. There's probably, I could go upstairs to my shelf and count 1, 2. But it's usually it's a good sign if you're starting a series and they're in there's more than 5. So it's probably pretty good if they've gotten past that. If there's 2 or 3, they had a 2 or 3 book contract, okay. But if they've gotten 5, 10, 15 books, it's probably pretty good.
Yeah, I would generally agree with that. I also notice very often, it's like, if you're going to read a series, at least read the first 2 books before you make a decision. Because there's lots of series I've read that I read the first book and like, that was okay, but eh. And then I read the second book and it's like, oh, okay. Like,
actually, Terry Pratchett, probably my favorite author, Discworld, probably my favorite series. I fortunately started with book 2 because I had read through book 4 before I found book. This was back in the days before Amazon, so you had to get into a bookstore and find it on the shelf to buy it.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not enjoy The Color of Magic as much as I enjoyed the other books. I mean, it was good, but the other books were amazing. Like I love Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but Hitchhiker's Guide, it starts up here, and then a second book's here, and then third and fourth, and so on, in the ever increasingly misnamed trilogy. While this world just went in the opposite direction until, it just kept getting better. So, and at least stayed up here. So, but yeah, it's a good idea. Because sometimes, like a TV show, they don't get it right in the first episode or two. The book, they've got it and then it gets better. Or I don't want to mention the name of the series because it's a negative thing. There's one series, probably one of the first good paranormal fantasy mystery combos, that the first 8 or so books are amazing. And then it goes into more adult content, which is still very well written adult content, but it's not what I wanted to read from that kind of book.
Gee, I think I know which series you mean, and I have the same opinion of it.
Yeah. I mean, she's still a brilliant writer.
Oh, no disrespect to her style as a writer, but if you want paranormal mystery, the series isn't that anymore.
Right. Now, I'll play devil's advocate. She's New York Times bestselling writer. Her books are like through the roof in sales. So she's doing something right. It's not my cup of tea any longer.
It's taste. It's like, I mean, I'll come out and say it. I'm talking about, I assume you are as well, Laurel K. Hamilton. And she's an excellent writer. And no disrespect for her style. It's taste. It's what you want out of a series. And the later books in that particular series go in a different direction.
Right. And I think in terms of her sales numbers, she made the right decision. It's just,
absolutely.
I'm not her target audience anymore.
Yeah. We're also not casting any shade. It's like I said, it's taste.
Yeah. Oh no. I mean, there are people. Yeah. I notice when somebody hits it big, people like to trash them. Twilight, 50 Shades of Grey, all that. And honestly, say what you will, these people know what they're doing. They sell millions of copies. They have diehard fans. They've done it right for their target audience. It's just the people who are casting shade are not their target audience.
This is true.
I mean, if you like British cozy mysteries, you probably should not be reading, erotic dinosaur porn.
It's that is the rule.
Right. It's probably not going to be for you, and vice versa. Although
you never know.
Dinosaurs solving mysteries. Now that could be fun, but like I said, it's just I just don't believe in trashing someone who's successful just because they're successful. It doesn't make sense to me.
It's always been
I admire the heck out of people who can pull that off. I haven't figured out how to get those sales yet.
It's always been a rule of thumb for my channel that somebody has to do something egregious and for me to trash them. And when I say egregious, it's like I won't trash somebody because I don't like their fiction. There's lots of writers I don't like. Lots of people like, these are very popular ones that have made a great deal of money, and people like that. That's cool. There's still a video I need to make about the one. There are certain lines you don't cross, and there's the one televangelist. Well, I'm not sure if he's a televangelist, but he's on YouTube. There's the one preacher who's actually literally called for a witch, called out members of a congregation claiming they're witches, and he's held a book burning. And it's like, okay, that's crossing lines. You want to write fiction I don't like, write the fiction I don't like. You're welcome to it, and if you can make money doing it, good for you. In all sincerity.
However, if he would like to get upset about one of my books and make a campaign against it and burn it, I welcome that, because that usually helps sales. I mean, Mouse is back on the bestseller list. Mouse, if you've not read Mouse, graphic novel.
Read Mouse.
It is amazing, but it's back on the bestseller list because they took it out of libraries and schools, and then somebody else decided to throw it in with the book burning. It's really just powerful. And
my advice to everybody listening to this: if you haven't read Mouse, read Mouse. If you've read Mouse, read it again.
And
it's that good.
Yeah, and like I said, most stores have it again. It's. I was in Walmart and I stopped by the books and they had it. So I mean, and they don't have many books on the shelves anymore. So Target had it. So So if somebody out there would like to get really upset about one of my books, please I tell me what you're offended by, and I'll point you to the right book. You know.
Yeah, just get a hold of me. I can get you in touch with Patrick. You can go to his websites. For that matter, I'm sure I know of two places. Like, there's something in there that'll take somebody off. I guarantee it.
Well, one thing with the Murphy's Law series I always found interesting is early on, I had been, I think it may have been the same convention. I was at a party, and I had two people talk to me about the series. And one person came up to me and told me that they thought Murphy's Law was wonderful. It was like the Christian Callahan's. Callahan's is by Spider Robinson. It is an excellent bar series. Recommended highly. And then, like I said, I think it may have been the same con. Someone came up to me and told me, "Oh, I love Murphy's Law. I love it how you stick it to religion." Murphy's Law was neither of those things, but they both liked it. They both saw what they saw in it. Murphy's, I like to provide some diverse viewpoints, and they latched onto it and they liked it. But it was written well enough that people with those kind of differing viewpoints both enjoyed the book. So I think I did my job, and I just try and remember that, people sometimes are reading something personal into something, and if they hate it, they hate it. Like I had one reviewer who reviewed 4 of the books in the Murphy's Law series in the same review, and it was like the review was written at 2 different points in their life, where one of them they were praising it and, oh, this is good, this is great, and the other one they were trashing it. It's like they started writing out and all was good and wonderful, and then like their fiance broke up with them or something, and they finished the review. I really can't say why.
What happened? Something happened.
But it was a very bipolar-esque review, because there was a lot of stuff in there, like you could take blurbs from it and say this is this, and then there was parts in there where they just trashed it. So it was very, I guess in one respect they were being fair. They were saying what they liked and they were saying what they didn't like. It just came across to me as that way, and I appreciated the review. It was a nice review.
Well, I'll say the one thing that struck me when I first read the first Murphy's Law book, The Tales from Bill Finch's Pub, is you have, without spoiling too much, Jesus show up as a character. And I remember reading that story and going, oh, this is a dance on eggshells type of situation. Because as my listeners know, I believe I've mentioned to you before, I'm a Christian, but you handle it with such grace. It's actually one of my favorite stories.
Oh, thank you. I did that. My mother, my sister is a nun. Just to give you an idea of the background I come from, my mother read that story and she says, I was very worried until I got to the end. So, you're not the only one who has done that with that story. And Jesus does show up again in the series, in the extended universe. In the Hell's Detective book, Jesus makes another, but I don't think anyone would be offended by Jesus, because in this book, he forgives somebody who many would consider one of the greatest sinners in the history of the world. Mm-hmm. And Jesus kind of forgives him. Jesus doesn't necessarily speak. It's seen at a distance outside the gates of heaven. Our main character, Hell's Detective, kind of tips his hat to Jesus, and Jesus waves back. And very respectful. But, if I'm having Zeus and Odin and Thor and Coyote and Sun Wukong appear, it just seemed appropriate that if we're doing a story, that story was about the wandering Jew, and why would Jesus, who preached forgiveness and turning the other cheek, curse somebody, for over 2,000 years? So, and I think it addressed why the person was cursed and why somebody who is divine in forgiveness might have done that. And I think, for me, it wrapped up some theological debates in a very fun little story. But if somebody's really upset about Jesus appearing in a book and wants to ban that book, there we go. I've seen different things where people will treat somebody's religion and all this very disrespectfully, and even if it's not my belief, I don't see the point of that unless it's a strong part of the story.
No, I like that about your stuff because it's like I have friends who worship some of the other gods that have shown up, but the way that it's treated with respect, it's not you're not making fun of other people's beliefs. And I
No,
think just about everybody could find something in there to enjoy, including the atheists. Although, yeah, yes, there are certainly things that will upset certain types of religious people because those types of religious people can always find something to upset them.
well, yeah, because it has to be their viewpoint, and the problem is, um, with certain viewpoints of certain religions, you get so narrow that if you actually go back to the source material, the Bible say, um, it's not going to back you up.
No,
You have somebody's interpretation, but if you go back to the actual version of the Bible, it's not going to back up what you're saying. I said, treat your neighbor as yourself and all this. But what if they're there? Did I stutter? It's
yeah.
not, it's not if they're poor, if they're from over the border, if they're from, you treat everybody nicely.
Yeah. Love thy
If you,
neighbor as thyself.
right. I mean, that basically, not to get into religious debate, but I do enjoy reading about different religions, beliefs, but Christianity is supposed to be everything be pared down to the, treat God good and treat your neighbor as yourself. That boils down everything. So don't do something to your neighbor you wouldn't want done to you, which does make a very interesting twist if you're a masochist, I guess. Because I want it done to me. But just that it messes up with that small part of the population.
Well, it also reminds me. There's the famous story about a very I can't think of his name, but a very famous Jewish rabbi, where somebody came in and said he wanted to convert to Judaism, but he would only do it if a rabbi could explain the entire idea of Judaism while standing on one foot. And this famous rabbi gets up on one foot and says, "Do nothing to another that you would find hateful if it was done to yourself. Everything else is just commentary. Now go study."
Nice.
And the guy converted.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think most of the major world's religions, it all boils down to, be good to other people and to yourself, I mean, be good to everybody. And people will tell you otherwise or trying to get your money.
I would agree.
So
I'm a big fan of be decent to each other as the moral standard.
So, but yeah, no. And actually, I don't want to give too much away. I have a project I have had on the back burner for years, and I'm hoping to ramp it back up. But I will be creating 3 different unusual religions for this project. And not necessarily going out and trying to convert people, but for the project, coming up with an idea of them, and I'm going to explore different aspects, and I think it's going to be fun theologically as an experiment, just to see what people.
I'm very curious.
So I don't want to give them away just yet because, like I said, it's a project. It's in. I don't want to give too much away. It's in a format I haven't done before. So it'll be part of a larger project. So it won't be the whole project. So, but I have 3 specific religious, 3 separate religious ministers, if you would, from 3 separate different religions that currently, to my knowledge, do not exist in the world. But I think will help for social commentary and humor and deep thought as a combination, which I think the mixture there, that's what I think works so well about the Murphy's Law series is it's funny, it's silly, it's dark. I've had people, get upset because parts of the series have made them cry. Like I had somebody who got very upset with me because something in Law and Disorder, which is the Hell's Detective book, made them cry. So even though it takes place in hell, there was still something in there that got to them emotionally, which I think is, I took as a huge compliment. I actually I wrote a book called Evermore's Hunter Lord years ago, and it's a tearjerker. And I actually had someone come up to me after they had read it and tell me that they hated me because of what I did to these people. Now, mind you, this is fiction. So
Yeah.
these people don't actually exist outside of the reader's mind. And that they would never, ever read anything I wrote again to punish me for what I did to these people. And I took that as a huge compliment.
I would agree. It is a odd compliment, but it is a compliment.
You know, that they got so invested in my characters that, and their situation. And like I said, it was meant to be a tearjerker. There's two parts of the book that most people cry at. So, and that was kind of the point of the book. It's out of print, so it's a little hard to find, but it can be found. Although every so often I've noticed recently we have had some books leave one publisher and go to another publisher, but in the gap in between, some of my books were selling for $800, $1,200, $1,300 on Amazon. I don't know if anyone bought them, but they were listed. Matter of fact, one of the books we wrote together, I think From the Shadows, was going for $800 or $900. So John put it on at $50 just to see if someone would, want to save $800 and buy it from him. I haven't heard, but $50 for a $13 book is a good deal for us.
Yeah, it's a great deal for you.
And if someone is selling those books at $800, again, contact us through the show, and I'll provide you with signed copies for 10%.
Yeah, you feel free to let me know. I'll be happy to set you up with John or with Patrick. So I have a question about a book that you've had in the works for a while, and I'm wondering if it's ever coming out. What about the Dagonet collection?
That is in the loop. I should have. I have a marker board with all the projects I'm currently working on. It is largely full. So there's a couple more I need to finish up, and then I have to decide based on word count. Do I go with just one collection from Camelot through the modern day, or do I split it into one for the history and one for the others? There's a story set in the American West, which is a particularly brutal story, and I've written it 3 times so far. The brutal part, actually, that part I haven't had to rewrite. It's the before and after the brutal part, because the brutal part is basically we get to see Dagonet was the jester of the Knights of the Round Table in Camelot, for those who are not familiar with him. And he was knighted so he could fight Sir Bors, because Sir Bors insulted him, but only a knight can fight another knight. And in mine, Sir Bors is another major character who's still around. I don't want to ruin it for people who may not have read the series.
Nor will I.
But he fights and he actually wins, which when you find out who the character actually is very impressive, considering Dagonet's like 4'10", and a good acrobat, but not exactly known for feats of strength. So he has a sword in several of the myths, but in my universe, Merlin has a twin sister named Ganita. And Dagonet and Ganita have, for the last 1,000+ years, had an on-again, off-again relationship. And when the Sword and the Stone broke, Merlin made Excalibur. And Excalibur, depending on what you read, kind of doesn't get given much. Like, it can cause blinding light. It can do this. It can do that. But they don't really go into what it is, except, it's an unbreakable sword, since the Sword and the Stone, which is what most people think Excalibur is anyway, gets broke. So Ganita, who doesn't have the power levels of her brother, decides she's going to show him up and build a better sword. And rather than give it to, someone else, she gives it to Dagonet to fight Sir Bors. And it's called Hayden, which is just the Old English word for hidden. And it's an invisible telescoping sword. And being that he is small and athletic, he actually can use it to like throw himself up in the air, point it at a tree, pull himself over. So he can use it as to make him not, change position, move fast. But if you think about it, since it's a telescoping magical weapon, he could kill a lot of people really fast. But he doesn't believe in wholesale slaughter as a rule. When I do the story of the final battle of Camelot, he'll have probably the highest body count. But in this story in the American West, he has, by the end of the story, he has shown how deadly he is and how wholesale his slaughter can be. And the people deserve what they get. He is avenging his family at that time. So,
Oh, wow.
And it is a very brutal scene. But before and after is not. So I have to like make this all work with the character because he doesn't stay that way. He doesn't have the original of the Punisher or Mac Boland or the Executioner where their family's like that and then they become the murdering forever and kill. He does it and then he's done. Because he took care of the people and then he goes back to trying. Not that it doesn't weigh on his conscience, perhaps, but he is not. He doesn't become the Punisher. So that story has been giving me a little bit of fits, and I do want to do one set in the From the Shadows era, with which is probably going to involve him and Negril, because that's been alluded to in several of the books, and in From the Shadows, Dagonet is mentioned but does not appear, so we know a group of people got together as the League of Shadows and had some adventures and saved the world. And I wanted to kind of get some of that era in there as well. So when those are done, then the book is done. So, and it's just a matter of getting it.
I mean, I'm a big fan of your work, but Dagonet remains easily my favorite character.
Thank you. He is, if we take Murphy and Patty out of the mix, he is probably my second favorite after Terabelle. So, with Negril coming in third.
Terabelle and Negril also are easily up there for me.
So, but there have been in Camelot 13. There's a new Dagonet story which will be in that collection, which is a book John and I co-edited, which features stories in the spirit of Camelot, from Camelot era to outer space and in between. Mine is set in the modern day, and that one we actually find out who the other surviving Knights of the Round Table are, and we learn that one character that we've seen in minor roles at different parts of the series is one of the knights. So, and some of the other characters, some of the other knights have appeared in the Hex books. They've appeared in the Murphy's proper. This won't ruin anything. It's just more of a comic point. The Green Knight is still around, but he played the beheading game one time too many. The guy got upset with him and stole his body. So he is currently just a head. His body is somewhere. He doesn't know where it is. So we have, just a talking head, it's just a flesh wound.
No, I run a Pendragon RPG, which is role-playing in the time of King Arthur. And yeah, I'm mining your stories for ideas.
Well, thank you. There are a couple different stories that were set in the Camelot time. And what I like to do is take existing legends and work them into my universe, like with character Nemesis, who appears in From the Shadows and the Terabelle books. In the legends for Helen of Troy and Castor and Pollux, their mother is either, in some legends, Nemesis or Leda of Swan, Zeus and the Swan's fame. And I managed to figure out a way to make it both. Just having fun stuff like that. So with a lot of the Camelot legends, some of them are contradictory and so it's fun trying to make him, in one of the Dagonet stories, Merlin sinks an island in the myths and the stories. We lead up to why Merlin sank an island, and I tie it into
nice.
I tie it into the mythos, which exists in the Murphy's Law universe as well. So, which will tie into some other stuff in when I finally get around to doing the League of Shadows stories. But like I said, literally right now in the Murphy's Law universe, I have Before Twilight, which is a Murphy and Loki novel, which is over 60,000 words at this point. Hopefully, like I said, I'll have it finished and out by the end of the year. We have the Dagonet collection or collections. Moni has almost enough for her own collection. She is a graveyard angel, descended from Lhasa, which are Eurasian goddesses who guarded graves and graveyards. Tales, Tails, from Bullfinch's Pub, which is going to involve characters who have tails. So a lot of animals, and different characters. That one